Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed the eighth and final episode from Monsterland. Again, this is a brand new Hulu anthology horror series. And we're very lucky to have the creator, writer, executive producer. Sorry, I think that's my screener just running out. We're very lucky to have the creator, writer, executive producer, Mary Laws, join us alongside director and executive producer Babak Anvari. So let's go ahead and welcome them. And Mary and Babak, I might have to ask you to turn on your video since I might have asked you to turn it off during the screening.
Hey!
Hey! Wow, thank you guys so much for joining us.
For having us.
I'm very excited to be able to talk to you about this episode and also about the series as a whole. Although I do feel like this is the one episode where I came away a little bit hopeful.
The only one.
But it is such a beautiful way to end a series of stories that really does go deep into the dark side of the human psyche and how that gets manifested externally into the monsters that figure into the stories. I know that the author of the shorts also inspired your adaptation of Wounds. And so I guess I'd love to hear about how both of you came to this author and what your relationship was to these stories before you decided to adapt them.
Yeah, Babak, why don't you start? Because you had a relationship with Nathan before me.
Sure. So yeah, I came across Nathan's stories through my producing partner Luke Quinto, and I first read his novella The Visible Filth, which was what Wounds was based on, and then I fell in love with his style and his work, and I started reading all of his other stories and his short stories collection, North American Lake Monsters, and we were at Annapurna in development with Wounds at that point. So immediately, me and my producing partner went to Annapurna. I was like, "This guy's a genius. You should read his stories and we could pick it up for a series. I think it's going to make a fantastic series." And we were lucky that Annapurna jumped on board immediately, and together we started looking at writers, showrunner, creators, and we were incredibly lucky that Mary responded to the material.
Yeah, I was just at Annapurna for a general meeting, and which is just kind of like a meet and greet, sit down and like hang out and see if there's like a connection or something that you would want to work together with Annapurna on. And this book was actually just sort of sitting on the table, and it was blurbed like Raymond Carver meets horror or something like that. And being like the biggest Raymond Carver fan, he's the master, I was like, what's this? And I read the first story, and then they were like, and Babak is already attached, and I knew Babak's work and absolutely loved it. And it was sort of just like a perfect sort of confluence of events. Came in and met with Babak and Lucan, and we all shared like a really similar vision for the show. And so then decided to make it.
I'm curious about the order of the stories and how much of the sequence of it comes from the book, meaning they are to some extent standalone episodes, but there are threads. For instance, in this one, we bring back, we see the Caitlin Deaver character from the first one, and there are moments of that in other episodes.
Yeah.
Is that the order in which they were presented in the book? Did you play around? Did you add some characters into other stories to give it that kind of?
Yeah, no, this is a really great and very rich question, because actually when we conceived this series, it was all going to be set in Louisiana. And so we had been developing stories that were all sort of in in around New Orleans, in the state of Louisiana. In fact, I think at one point I was pitching we call the series Louisiana, and everyone was like, no, that's terrible name. But I was really drawn to, in Nathan's book, like all the stories are set in and around the Gulf Coast, and I am from Texas and love that part of the country and feel like it's so ripe. I think, Babak, you're the one that's always saying like New Orleans is the only place in America that feels like really authentically old. And it feels like there's so much territory there for both sort of like working class people, which was really a draw for me, writing characters about really like regular, ordinary people. But then also for like ghosts and monsters and demons of like all variety. So we had 8 episodes sort of constructed for Louisiana, and then all those horrible, heinous abortion laws started being passed, and we decided to move out of Louisiana for the safety and of our female cast crew, everyone, and ended up going to New York to shoot, and so had to kind of reconceive the series to be set in different parts of the country, each episode sort of. So they became more standalone. I think when the series was set in Louisiana, there were going to be a lot more crossovers, like that Caitlin Deaver character that appears in a couple of the episodes. There were going to be many instances where a minor character then becomes a major character in another episode. We didn't get to do quite as much of that because it didn't make sense story-wise that these characters would sort of like appear in each other's states and stuff like that. But we do have some remnants of that, which I think is really fun. You know, I think like anthology series are really exciting because you can kind of henpick, but I feel like, you know, as a creator, you really want someone to watch through the entire season. And so I felt like that connectivity and those crossovers would give people more reason to go start to finish and really take in the entire series.
Are all of the episodes direct adaptations?
No, only 3 of them are direct adaptations. One of them is like sort of an updated version. Our second episode deals with like the sort of the perils of online radicalization, which was definitely pulled from a story from Nathan's book, but we felt like, you know, radicalization doesn't really happen in person as much as it does on the internet right now. We really wanted to tell a story about the internet. And then the other 4 are original ideas. Although Nathan, who's the author of the book, we were so lucky to have him come and sit in the writer's room with us for the first 2 weeks. So he was truly a part of conceiving all of the original ideas as well.
Oh, great. I mean, there's definitely a tonal consistency in the concept of the monstrous throughout the 8 episodes. And so I guess I'm curious, what inspired you to direct this one in particular? Since you have 8 great stories, you gave us the one that was a little bit sweeter, a little bit hopeful.
That's a great question. I think I'm sure Mary remembers it from day one when we started to work on the pitch for the show. I kept telling Mary this is one of my favorite stories, and how much I loved it and how much I wanted to do it. And I think there were like a lot of different reasons for that. One of the major ones is like the hopeful message of it, and the fact that these couples are like so broken and so separated, and this miracle happens and bring them back together. And I just felt that it was so cathartic, you know, especially after doing something like Wounds, which is quite nihilistic. You know, I thought this was like, you know, the world needs that message of hope. And yeah, like when we started setting up the show, I think, yeah, from the get-go, I kept telling Mary that I think this is the special one for me. And I'm so glad that, you know, we all decided to end the series with, you know, on that hopeful note, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
But you also start the series with potentially one of the most nihilistic ones, by, you know, setting it up that a woman would abandon her child. And it's such a complex, nuanced story. And then in the middle of it, you've got this character that can, you know, that can create his new identity by putting on other people's skins. So I'd love to talk about the relationship between the human condition and the monstrous, and how you sort of perceive these in the different episodes. We can start with talking about the fallen angel, and also sort of like what that represents for you. But you know, the first one definitely leaves you with a very kind of powerful sense of tragedy, and this one gives you a little bit, and the final one gives you a little bit of catharsis. And I'm curious to talk about the tonal shift going from one extreme to the other.
Sure. I mean, I think just generally speaking, I think I'm a hopeful person. I think Babak is a very hopeful person. And I think that both of us felt like we didn't want to end this series in despair. I mean, I don't think that's how either of us sees the world. I think that, you know, and this series is very much about the world. It's about our country. And really, we were kind of tackling characters and issues both that we, in each episode that we saw sort of in the present moment when we were developing the series. The world does look very different right now, actually, than it does in this world of Monsterland, which was not intended to be the case. It was supposed to look like our present day world. And I guess in some regards it does. Anyway, I digress. I think that, you know, we didn't want to end in despair, because that's not how I don't think either of us see the world at all. But in terms of the sort of the human and the monstrous, I can't remember exactly what your question was.
They were sort of two conflated questions.
No, that's fine.
Let me rephrase that.
Sure.
The final episode having catharsis is very understandable, but you do start off with a very powerful nihilistic statement in the beginning.
Do you think it's nihilistic? I don't know that it's nihilistic. I just think it's honest. I feel like
I agree, but it's about the nihilism of the situation that would lead her to that moment.
Sure. I think we might just agree to disagree maybe on terminology. I feel like, you know, the first episode is really truly the one that made me want to adapt to the book. It's the first short story in the book. And I think I actually, after I took the book home and read the first story, I don't even think I read the rest of the book before I said I wanted to work on it. That story in particular, I was like, if all the other stories in this book are half as good as that story, it's still going to be a great series. I was so drawn to the character of a complicated young single mother faced with like incredibly hard choices in sort of the height of poverty in like rural Louisiana. Like, who is that person and where is she on television? Absolutely nowhere. And I, as you know, as a woman who was a young woman who grew up in the South, I just felt like this could have so easily been me in a heartbeat. And I'm really drawn to complicated female characters. I mean, I feel like we get more and more and more as the years go by, but there still aren't enough. And I'm so keen to tell stories about women who behave badly and make really terrible, monstrous choices that are a product of their environment and their circumstances. So I don't know. I guess I don't particularly find it that nihilistic. I feel like it's so easy for someone to get into that situation of that woman. And I think it's just a really honest story about the way that the world is set up for young women who don't have a lot, who need, and then are thus forced to make really difficult choices about their families, about their bodies, about all kinds of things. So yeah. Babak, do you want to add anything to the hopefulness or the nihilism or the?
No, I also I agree with you, Mary. I don't find that episode nihilistic. I like, honest is the best way to put it. It's just you put yourself as much as you can in her shoes, and like, you know, the world can be tough, and she's forced to make certain tough decisions. And I also love the fact that how those two episodes kind of like bookend, you know, the series, and how Caitlin is in both of them, like as a link. I thought that was just so clever. You know, obviously hats off to Mary and her brilliant writers. And so yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, and I want to also preface, I thought that the character and the choices she makes in that first episode are phenomenal. It's the fact that she has to make it, that sort of the view of the world that puts her in that position, where I'm referencing a sort of you know, a view of humanity that forces us to make that choice in the first place. And
yeah. I mean, for me, it doesn't feel like a view of humanity. That feels like humanity. It feels like it's sort of an that is just what it is. I know so many people in that situation, and I think, you know, yeah.
Well, let me go back to the other thing I was saying about the expression of the monstrous and its reflection in the, you know, sort of the psyche of the characters. In that one, it's a sort of changeling serial killer, or a variation on that. Here in this last episode, we see a fallen angel. We also see mermaids, shadow monsters. We see the second coming of Christ. These are all very, actually relatively unusual to have actually seen in horror stories. They're monsters that, you know, changelings and things, they pop up here and there, but they're so uniquely used in these stories. Tell us a little bit about some of your creature design, some of like what you wanted these things to express philosophically as a manifestation of the horror.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll talk a little generally. Maybe Babak, you can talk a little bit about the angel in particular. I mean, you know, what Nathan's book does so beautifully is that it uses these sort of horror creature tropes, archetypes to sort of like flip the narrative on its head. And so they really are metaphors in most instances. And so we were trying to find creatures that could be used to and symbolize that Jungian struggle within the protagonist. But I also, what I love about always going back to Nathan's book is that it is both sort of horrific and beautiful at the same time. And so in terms of creature design, we worked with this amazing design studio called K&B, Greg Nicotero, who does all of The Walking Dead. Yeah, super profound monster maker. And we worked with them to try and design monsters that were both horrifying and beautiful at the same time. You know, a lot of our references for the show were photographers. Gregory Crewdson was like a big reference for us. Todd Hito was a big reference for us. You know, films like Repulsion and Rosemary's Baby were big references for us. Sort of, the idea being that, like, you know, beauty and horror sort of sit on this like very fine line right next to each other, and we wanted to really explore having kind of one foot on each side of the line. Babak, do you want to talk about the angel in particular?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea behind the angel is, like Marian discussed from the get-go, is, you know, this almost like you know, this couple had lost this innocence within their sort of like relationship, and like the angel symbolizes that sort of innocence. So almost like having something that looks almost like a big baby with like large puppy eyes and you know, almost like a sort of like I guess like a mix between an alien and an angel, and which, yeah, I think our special makeup did a great job delivering that, and also added VFX, Mary, which I thought like it you know, brought the great final touches.
Yeah, we did a pretty heavy VFX pass on the angel. Not heavy, actually, an extensive but a very sort of light touch. We wrote out the angel out in every scene, and we added, I mean, the creature makeup was phenomenal, and it probably would have flown without anything else. But we added just a very, very faint glow. Honestly, just because, you know, it's 2020, and you can sort of, we needed to sort of like amp up the sort of magic of it. But the makeup itself was pretty astronomical. We just wanted to give it that something special, otherworldly a little bit.
Whatever you did, it makes that final sort of angel sacrifice particularly sensual, erotic even. And of course, that moment is a moment of you know, sort of reconnection at that level for the main characters. But I'd love to hear about some of the discussions leading up to that, because it is such a strong visual image. It works so well. It's so beautiful. But it is, you know, what's actually happening is still, you know, grotesque in a sensual way. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on conceiving of that scene altogether.
Yeah, I mean, where did that, I don't even remember where it came from. We really, well, we wanted it, again, it's just one of those moments where we wanted the sort of the divine and the beautiful to juxtapose against what is like sort of shocking and horrifying. And I feel like actually this is probably a moment where we achieved that to its highest potential, because, you know, they're literally being bathed in blood. They're at the end, and in its sort of like final sacrifice, as the angel is sort of sending them off to have this vision of their daughter, and this allowing them to have this goodbye moment, and this catharsis. But, you know, in the story, it is a little bit more visceral, I think. They eat the angel alive together, and it's very sort of, our translation of that is that it's very holy, that it was almost like this angel was a sacrament, you know, there's this communion moment where they just devour the body of this thing, and then later Brian, the father, alone has this sort of vision of his child dead, actually, but it's meant to sort of symbolize like some letting go, you know, of the hope that he had, and the grief and his own guilt. So we just slightly had a different vision for the script, but wanted to really make sure we maintained what Nathan had done so beautifully in the book, which was this really this coming together of the two parents in this sort of like holy communion type sacrifice, while still maintaining like a little bit of that grotesque element. Babak, do you want to talk about any of like the mechanics of it, or anything like that? Because it was probably one of my favorite moments on set when we ended up, you know, shooting this particular sequence.
I know. But it was also very challenging. We, you know, obviously, as everyone knows, filmmaking, TV making, you're always like up against it, you know, and we had like so many different departments that to come together and work, you know, collaboratively in unison, and you know, we didn't have like days and days of rehearsal. Everything had to happen in one day.
I think we had like 2 hours.
Yeah, 2.5 hours. I kept telling Mary, it's like, you get to test days like for days, and now we only have like 2 hours. but and also we were shooting on location, so it was like all these like one cramped space, and you know, so it was tricky, but it was also at the same time wonderful because like literally everyone came together and did this dance, and it was rather emotional. The moment everything just clicked and worked so well. Like,
Babak, we lost you for just a second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now you're back.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that like it was just almost emotional how everyone suddenly started working in harmony to bring this divine moment to life. It did feel really miraculous. I think both Mary and I were kind of like almost like choked up with emotions behind the
Our AD cried. He cried. He was like, he was directing everyone, and he cried because of the beauty of the crew and the actors and everyone just sort of like working together so perfectly in tandem for this moment. And it was one of our, I think, our most special moments on set, and really one of those moments where you're like, oh yeah, this is why we do what we do for times like these.
I'm also curious to hear about the conceptualizing when Caitlin takes the angel blood for the first time. You get that very intense sequence in the diner, which by the time you get to the squealing pigs, it's just like becomes this overwhelming experience. And I'm curious how much of that, was that something always in the story? Did you sort of experiment with that as you were shooting, or did it come really when you were at the editing stage and you were like, how can we bring this together? Yeah,
B, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it always starts with the script and the way Mary described that scene. With like, I can't remember. I think basically just to paraphrase, the way Mary described the scene is so visual and audibly so interesting. And like when we were shooting it, we obviously shot it in the standard slow motion and like camera tricks and everything. But I think all the stuff with the pigs and all the archive footage was also like experimenting in the edit with our brilliant editor, Josh Lee, who we just went crazy. Actually, the version you see is like a slightly trimmed version because of obviously the length and duration, but like really had a lot of fun that day cutting that section together.
So I'm going to start taking some questions from the audience, and what I'll say to you guys out there is I'll welcome you over to ask your question live so that we can see your face if you want. When I bring you over, you're welcome to turn on your video. You don't have to, though. You can just use your microphone at that point. I did want to ask if there are, like, would you say that every episode is sort of stitched together by a little something? Because I feel like I caught it in several, but the stories themselves are so engrossing that I may have missed things here and there.
What do you mean stitched together by a little something?
Connected to each other. So the politician that's, we're going to run for president is referenced a few times in the mermaid episode.
Definitely. We have some like visual elements that are kind of pulling the series together. Our amazing production designer Ola Maslik put a lot of American flags in every episode, so people are wearing them. They're in the set design. We shoot them all over the place. So kind of that was something that we did visually to tie everything together, since every episode is set in a different city in the contiguous United States. We do have an election that's happening that is spoken of in about 4 or 5 different episodes. It's on the radio, or in one episode, one of the candidates plays a character in episode 4. So definitely that. And then Caitlin pulls them all together because as she appears in a few others, Tony is her character. Let's see what else. There's an oil spill that happens off the Gulf Coast that 2 of the episodes sort of attack from 2 different directions. So yeah, there are some things that are pulling the series together. And again, those are remnants of what would have been a much bigger collage of connectivity, but still really exciting because we wanted to all the whole series to be happening in the same moment in the same country. So it occupies the same universe.
Okay, let's jump out to we'll start with Alex Jackson and then Anthony Gardner.
Cool.
So Alex, let me move you over, and so just take a sec. By the way, was there a character in Bill Camp's birthday party that looks just like Trump?
Yeah. In the dream sequence, there's definitely there's a Trump and a Reagan and a Bush, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All
okay, Alex, welcome.
Hi,
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Alex.
Hey.
My question is, when you were writing this episode, are the sounds that we hear in the finished product what you were envisioning? And also to the director, when you were reading the script for the episode, like, could you hear, like, for example, the sounds of the alien, or for the sound of Tabitha running around?
Cool. That's a really cool question. Babak, what do you want to take it?
Sure. I mean, as always, it always starts with the script and Mary's vision or ideas for the sound. It was, a lot of them were already in the script, and there were cues. And I think perfect for a sound designer. You know, when you read Mary's scripts, you know, you can not only visualize it, you can hear it. And as a director, it's amazing as well. And then I guess then a lot of it also comes in the edit, you know, how you work with an editor. Like I said, you experiment with different types of sounds, and like, and Mary and I constantly talked about like what the angel sound should be like. And you put temp sounds, you experiment with temp sounds in the edit. And then finally, obviously, using the temp as the basis, the sound designer comes in and like kind of does his magic, and you know, adds more layers to it. Mary, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is so much more that's rich here than I could have ever imagined, because just like everything, you know, it every step of the process, it gets richer and deeper and better the more people who come in to collaborate on it. So there's some really incredible sound work that was done that were like ideas our editors had. Like our editor Josh really loved the idea of having the little ballerina Tabitha, hearing her sort of singing and humming, kind of echoing in Brian's head in moments where he's sort of lost in his grief. And that was totally not in the script. It was 100% something that came out of the edit. And so we had our amazing composer, Gustavo Santolaya, compose a little tune, and we hired a young actress to sing it. And so things like that I just find the more hands that get to touch the episode, the richer and the ideas become, and you can just start layering in all of those ideas. And so some of it certainly was in the script, but a lot of it was just came from Babak, came from the sound designer, came from the editor, and stuff like that.
And I also want to give credit to the incredible edit assistants who spend hours and hours going through sound who went through sound archives and like put a lot of ideas in there for me and the editor Josh and Mary to go through and sit through. So edit assistants.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's something I really admired about the episode.
Oh, thank you so much, Alex. That means a lot to hear. Thank you.
Alex, do you want to ask your second question as well, since you're here?
Oh, so my other question was this story always based on African-American protagonists? And like, how important is the diversity to you?
Yeah, I mean, in the book, Amy and Brian are not, it's their ethnicity is not specified. But diversity was very, very important to us on the series, because we wanted to paint an accurate representation of the country, and the country is diverse, you know. So we made sure, and I think that this is, you know, it's a really good question, because Hollywood, for as progressive as it is not as progressive as I want it to be. And so sometimes when you want to put diverse faces on screen, you have to really fight for it. And for me, a trick has been to make sure that it's in the script, so that you are pointing to it, and so that when you take it to casting, there's a really specific reason, and it really made sense to us because of this location, that they were a Black couple, and especially because of their relationship to the police looking for their daughter. That felt very true to the Black experience, as we understood it in this country. And so it just sort of all fell into place for this particular episode. And then we got the most amazing cast ever. I mean, Jesus, they're so good, and they were so willing to do crazy shit, like make out under a bloodbath. So it ended up all coming together so perfectly. But yeah, I mean, I think that diversity is so important. Not because it's good to be diverse, but because look at our country. Like, everyone is so different, and I feel like I want the people that I put on screen to be representative of the world that I live in.
And I'm glad you're doing that.
Thanks. It's a good question, Alex. Thanks for both of them.
And thank you for answering them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move you back over, Alex, and let's welcome over Anthony. The casting was really excellent all throughout this series.
Oh, good. I'm glad you think so.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every episode. And I particularly loved Sharko.
Oh, true. Yeah, he's the best. He's so good. And we were just really lucky to have him. We auditioned so many different people for that role, and when he came through, we were like, oh my God, there's no one better. He was so fantastic.
I'm seeing that I don't think we still have Anthony on, so I'll bring in Jules Minton in a second, but I did want to ask Anthony's question, which was if you could tell us about who played the angel and what was that experience like for them?
Yeah, the angel was played by this incredible actor named V. Nixie, who has really made a living being a creature actor, a creature performer. I believe they started as a contortionist, but they're someone that K&B, who made all of our creatures, has worked with on many occasions. And Babak, you can probably speak to this as the director of the episode, but I found that having someone who knows how to move and live inside of the prosthetics, it takes a lot of training. It's not just something you could slap prosthetics on me and then I'd be able to do it. Like, she has such a really extensive movement background. Babak, I felt like that it really helped us when we were in production, because she knew more about how to use the makeup than we did, you know?
Yeah, and everything she offered, all the movements, like head jerks, even sound sometimes, that we use some of them as like basis of the angel sound. Like, she was incredible, and wearing those, the suit is not comfortable, and you know, hats off to her and all the other monsters in her show.
Yeah,
go through it, and, you know, and real trooper and amazing talent.
All right, let me bring over Jules. And all right, you're on our side, Jules.
All right, hi.
Hi.
Hi. The moment in the diner, incidentally, I really thought the look of the episode was fantastic, beautifully directed. It was, you know, for a television series, it looked extraordinary.
What we like to hear, Jules.
There was that moment in the diner where Tony and, oh God, what was the name of the other character? Where where our protagonist and the waitress are about to kiss, and they're interrupted, and she goes to the cash register and drops the coins. I didn't see another character in the diner. Maybe I just missed it, but if indeed it was meant to be an almost supernatural thing, which is what I sort of felt it was, that opens up a lot, because it's kind of like fate taking him away from that path of getting revenge and having his own affair. And the dropping coins, of course, makes him disappear again. Was there another character in there? I didn't see one.
No, there wasn't. And I love your interpretation of it too. I mean, I love fate pulling him away. That's so spectacular. But no, it was meant to just be the coin drop that was the thing that triggered his sort of trauma response and brought him back to reality and forced him out the door.
Well, I mean, was there a stated reason in the script why she suddenly breaks away, goes to the register, and drops coins?
Oh, just because
I thought, okay, another customer came in, so she has to go take care
Oh,
of
I
it.
see. No, I think it was just because the song broke and the mood broke with it. Yeah.
No, but I thought it was great that it had that feel of fate.
Awesome. I mean, I love that. I love every interpretation, and I think that the idea that fate was the thing that pulled him away, perfect.
Yeah, and thank you so much for talking about the look and the way it was. I just want to say massive respect to our DP Anka, who's an amazing collaborator, and yeah, couldn't have achieved that without her.
Yeah, we certainly shot this series with definitely not enough time or money, and wanted to try and make it look as exquisite and as cinematic as we possibly could. And our two cinematographers, Annette and Anka, both played the most essential roles in our ability to do that. So thank you. We'll pass the compliment on.
It wasn't just cinematic. It actually, the sequences, the special effects sequences of the angel was falling, would have stuck out like a sore thumb if the whole feel of the piece hadn't been semi-mystical, lingering somewhere between the realistic and the poetic.
Awesome. Cool.
So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Jules. Thank you so much.
See you, Jules. Okay, so we got Anthony back, and so we'll give him an opportunity to ask the last question.
Super.
Just move him over.
You must be an expert at Zoom at this point.
Yeah, it's been a virtual education for 6 months. Will really get you whipped into shape.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey there.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Oh my God.
Okay. All right. So what I want to know is, okay, you read Wounds. Well, the original title wasn't Wounds, but you read Wounds and you read this book, and it's such a hard read because the situations everybody are being put through are so horrible, and the people are just skirting the edge of being normal and being like morally acceptable. What made you guys go, oh my God, this would make a great movie, or this would make a great TV series? Because as a read, it's almost a depressing experience, and then you have to put it down and put it away for a bit before you pick it up again.
Sure, yeah. I mean, first of all, hi, and your quarantine hair looks great, Tony.
I'm doing the Babak.
Yeah, you guys are twinning for sure. Babak, you want to take this first, and then I'll go. You're the one who came to the book before I did.
I think, okay, well, I mean, there's something, I mean, you already touched on it, Mary. I think that I don't think the stories are like depressing per se. It's more like the thing that like I find interesting in Nathan's work, especially in this collection of short stories, is that the way that he dealt with that Jungian shadow that Mary brought up, that like the monsters are like almost like a reflection of like some sort of like an inner issue or problem, or like the problem they're facing, an obstacle they're facing in real life. And whether they get sort of the way to overcome the obstacle, go around it, or get sort of like beaten down by it, I think that's a very human experience, and I think that's what makes the story so special. Mary, you can probably talk much better than me about it.
I mean, in terms of like the tone or how depressing the stories were, I guess I didn't perceive them that way. I think
maybe that's not the best word choice.
Sure, yeah.
But there's, everybody's out in for such a rough ride, and
Yeah.
some of them don't make it so well.
Some of them don't make it so well. But I mean, isn't that drama?
Oh, well, for sure. But I just wondered, like, what made you go, oh, this is a TV series?
Well, the thing that made me say this is a TV series is, I came to this book and to Nathan's work just shortly after the last 2016 election, and I was really struck by, and continue to be struck by, I'm sure we are all struck by, how polarized our country is and how polarized our world is in this current moment. It's really scary. And I feel like I noticed people becoming so polarized, they were losing touch with their own humanity. This is good person, this is a bad person, this is a good choice,
Right.
This is a bad choice, this is right and this is wrong. And I don't think that's how the world works, and I don't think that's how being human works. We are not all good, we are not all bad, we are not defined by our best choice, and we are not defined by our worst choice. And what I thought was really brilliant about what Nathan's book was offering were people with realistic backgrounds, realistic traumas, real struggles, working class people, regular people, my people, the people I grew up with, who were making really monstrous decisions because of X, Y, or Z. And those felt like stories that in the moment when I thought, oh God, everything is becoming so black and white, these are stories worth telling because they interview the gray area. And I think that it's really important to me as a storyteller, and also to me as a consumer of stories, to always be experiencing that kind of gray area, because it reminds me of my own humanity. It reminds me of the things that I as a person am capable of, and therefore it allows me to see what you are capable of, and remind me that we're both just human. We're both doing the best that we can. And so that's really why this book was so potent to me, because I wanted to tell those kinds of nuanced stories in the gray area.
That's very cool. I like the fact that it's not non-judgmental. It's very observational.
Yeah. Nathan has a really, is a writer who has empathy for all of his characters. And you feel it when you read the stories, that there's not a secondary or tertiary character in any story that he doesn't love with his whole heart. I think that's the way that Nathan himself, who has become a really good friend of mine, moves through the world. He loves every single person he meets, and he tries to shake their hand with an open heart, Yeah. And I think that he writes that way. And so I think that me as the showrunner and the writers all tried to write that way as well. And we're constantly reminding ourselves, like to love all of the people in the stories, and to explain them, but not judge them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's nice to see you, Tony.
Likewise. It's so messy here. I just keep moving around trying to find one thing.
No, I love it. It's great.
Tony, since you're on, I have to ask, what is it like for Hocus Pocus to be the #2 film in America?
Oh my God, it's pretty mind-blowing. I mean, honestly, it was such a dismal failure when it came out in the middle of July.
Yeah.
It was in and out of the theaters in probably a couple of weeks, which back then wasn't the norm. And to see what it's turned into has been pretty amazing.
Oh, it remains one of my favorites. I'm going to the drive-thru to see it in 2 weeks.
Are you?
Yeah.
Bette Midler's doing a thing on Hulu, actually.
I'm obsessed with her. I'm obsessed with it all. I was obsessed with it when I was a kid. I love the crazy witches. I love them. I'm obsessed.
They're all coming back for Sanderson Sisters sort of takeover of Halloween on the 30th.
Awesome.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah. And Doug Jones may or may not be involved. I think that's officially what we're supposed to say.
Cool.
Exciting.
But yeah, it's great to see, obviously.
Yeah.
It's nice to be, I mean, it's my favorite holiday too. So it's nice to.
Of course it is, Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should be filming this from my living room. We have a Halloween tree.
Oh, fun.
It
That's
explains a
super
lot
cute.
about me. Well, it's good to see you guys.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thanks.
Stay in touch with us. It's nice to see you. I'll talk to you soon, I hope.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye.
Good to see you.
Thank you both so much for spending this time with us. I really hope that if this was the first episode some of you out there have seen, that you'll go back and watch the whole series. I'm very excited to see if you make another season of the show. And you're right, there is an honesty to this horror that was really impactful, and it's also refreshing to see a lot of new kinds of monsters. So thank you for bringing all of this to life, and I really hope that we can do this again soon.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So glad to be here. Also, if anyone wants to email and ask more specific questions, I'd be happy to share my email with you, Alex, and anyone who wants that is totally welcome to it.
Absolutely. So, well, I guess you have do you have my email address?
I do have your email.
Yes.
Or if not, I can get it, but I'll give it to you. Yeah.
Fantastic.
But feel free. I love things like this. And when I was a student, I went to them all the time, and it's the best way to learn. So if you have more specific questions, you're welcome to reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. And Babak, I know it's quite late for you, so thank you for
I do apologize if I rambled and some of the stuff I said wasn't quite making sense. It's kind of past my bedtime, but I love doing these type of things, and and yeah, it's absolute pleasure.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye, Alex.
Happy
Nice
Halloween.
to see you. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.